There's going to be full spoilers ahead for episode number 6 of Big Sky. The wolves are always out for blood. This is Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Rick Legowski. He is alive. I was very concerned going into, at the end of episode 5 when he was shot in the head. I was like, damn, man. To take out Rick, was sort of, he's the main villain. He's sort of, I thought very important to the story, and to kill him off that quickly, it just made me question. Well, where do we go from here? Because I started enjoying the character of Ronald, but I just didn't think he could carry the show as the central villain. But Rick is still here now. How this is going to work, I have no idea. What are your thoughts on Rick surviving?
Well, I think what you just said is the reason we keep tuning in. When you mention what's going to happen or what are they going to do, that's the best part about this show, is that we don't know. And there's a couple things that we'll get into that we thought were like a little gripe worthy and kind of funny, but what you just said is the reason that I tune in each week. Is, well, I mean, it's been like 2 months, but prior to the Christmas break, the reason I tune in is because what's going to happen when you have what we thought Rick might be dead. He's not, but all the things that come of that now are intriguing. Is, Ronald going to find out what's happened? Is Ronald going to try to clear his name, or is Ronald going to try and find his little, they said Rick has a secret room full of all of information. Is that going to lead us to who Rick is working with? Is that going to throw a couple other people under the bus? I was thinking maybe the way the sheriff was kind of playing into all this. At first, I didn't think that he was involved, but now he might be. So that it added so many other avenues with him being alive than if he just basically died. So there's so many more questions now that I'm actually intrigued by, with him still being relevant. So I like what they did, and I've liked what they've done so far. So it's one of those things where we weren't sure what was going to happen, but now I'm back on board.
Two major questions regarding Rick's death. The first being not death, I should say. The first was Cassie. She was the one that pulled the trigger, and Sheriff Walter, like you said, Sheriff Walter started doing her statement, and basically, it was interesting because he was basically saying, which he's not wrong. He's like, did Rick ever point the gun at you? What exactly did he say? When did you pull the trigger? And he's basically questioning her actions. She's not a cop at this point, and so she's just technically she's a detective, sort of, but she killed or they thought at the time was going to kill a state trooper. I'm curious if that's going to play a part later in Rick, because Rick's alive, so what happens? We have the three girls basically said, yeah, it's him. They've eyewitness that he was one of the captors. So how does he get out of this? And I don't know. I'm thinking that the Cassie questioning is going to play into it. I was also thinking, well, maybe he goes into some kind of witness protection because maybe he's going to give information up. I don't know, because the other major thing that was not brought up at all in this episode is there was a crew coming to pick up the girls. They never showed, or at least they showed and kept going when they saw what was going on. Where are those people at? Are they hiding in town? Are they going to try and take Rick out? Are they going to go after Ronald? Are they, what are they going to do? Who are they? And I think that's going to be a major plot point going forward.
Well, I was going to say that, do we already know who they are? It's, there's a couple characters who we've been shown glimpses of, but they haven't been, readily, I guess, prevalent, like the state trooper chief. They showed her very quickly, but she seemed very suspicious. They've mentioned Canada a lot. Is there somebody who we haven't seen yet? There's a lot of question marks that they added in this episode, which to me, I'm on board with. It's, it's, they haven't been, oh, excuse me, they haven't been answering questions. They've been asking more questions. And with the, them finding Cody, with them kind of adding a different twist to the Rick storyline, there's a lot of things that they kind of tied up, but in tying those up, they created more questions, which is interesting.
Yeah, the structure of the show, when we talked about it, back in, November, December, but more so now, than ever, it's not structured like a procedural, or it's not episodic at all. In fact, it's more like a soap opera in that it's an ongoing story. Each episode goes right into the next. There is no case of the week or anything like that. Not saying it won't maybe do that at some point, but it hasn't yet. We're 6 episodes in, and that's not the structure of the show. um, I think that helps it a lot because it does keep you the show moves at a very brisk pace, and like you said, it keeps you wanting more. Even though I have a few issues with some of the dialogue, and there's some cringy stuff here and there. The writing isn't perfect by any means, but I think the pacing of it and that structure helps it a lot as far as me wanting to keep coming back.
I think a show like this would excel in a non ABC, NBC, CBS type format. Like if it was in a FX
Yeah,
or
FX.
ENT or HBO or Stars or something like that, I think this show would excel even more because, like you said, some of the dialogue and I think a lot of network shows get trapped by that. When you have this kind of show with these kind of bad guys and this kind of stuff, when you're basically saying, "Oh, fart,"
Well,
rumble skin,
it's also the amount of content they have to crank out. It's a combination because these guys are having to crank. It got picked up for another 11 episodes. So this season's probably going to be 20 plus episodes. That's a lot in a short time, and I doubt that those 11 episodes had any outlines or anything. I think they're writing
yeah,
them probably as we speak. So you're having to crank out all this dialogue. Soap operas. They literally put up about 4 shows a week every single week.
yeah, they have a very short off season. It's pretty. They basically work 9 months a year. It's a lot. They're basically like a school schedule. It's, they
Yeah.
have some holidays and some stuff, but they work. It's a lot. But when you mentioned the dialogue being a little hammy, it's because of stuff like that. And it, I think a good example of something like that is Arrow or Supernatural, which both, coincidentally, well, not really coincidentally, it's CW, but the shows themselves start so strong, but as they carry, further, it gets very redundant and it's not great. And that is my fear for this show. But as of right now, the story's still great. The characters are developing well. I like the way that they're going, but my fear is that, come season 2 or the end of season 2 or beginning of 3, it's going to be dumb. Right now, I love it. But
Yeah, because originally this was supposed to be 10 episodes. They split it in half for the break for the holidays, but then they ordered another like dozen ish, 10 or 11. And that did concern me, and it still does, because like I think they probably had a set story. They knew where it was going to start, the beginning, middle, and end. And like network TV, you can get picked up, and you get additional episode orders. Therefore, oh no, we got okay. What do we do next? What do we do next? And it causes potentially bad storytelling, or because there's not a plan. They're just sort of going as they go, and this definitely could have that problem, especially since it's not episodic. It's one flowing story. So we'll
well,
see how they handle. I think we'll know by the end of like episode 9, 10, because that was supposed to be the original sort of stopping point.
I wish that they would have just, instead of ordering 11 more episodes, them just saying, "All right, well, we're going to pick you up for season 2 already." Instead, because you look at a show like The Good Place. I love that show. It's a funny show. It's a network show. Even I think it was CBS that did it, but they basically did. I think it's 10 episode seasons, and they did 5 seasons. But there are 4 seasons. I don't remember 4 or 5, but it's 10 episodes, and it's great. It's super funny. The show doesn't feel drawn out. They get around the swearing, kind of like a Babylon 5 type thing, where they're in the good place, so they say shirt instead of shit, or fork. Oh, go fork yourself. But it's funny, and the acting's good. A show like this, where it's a different content, a different kind of villain and stuff, when they draw it out, but it's not episodic. To me, how are you going to stretch an overarching villain for 24 episodes? That's my concern.
Yeah, absolutely, because yes, Rick's alive, but he's gonna play a different role. I believe he's gonna have to because they know he committed this crime. What that role is going to be, I don't know. It is interesting that he'll stick around. Ronald now, he's there, but I still don't think he can hold the show as a villain. He did some interesting things this episode. He smart enough to realize, okay, they know it's a trucker, therefore I need to disguise my truck because they probably have an idea of what my truck looks like. They do, in fact. So
Yeah.
he changes the color of his truck, changes the license plate.
He was doing some metal work and stuff too. So was he like changing the, you think of a regular car, it's got like side skirts and stuff. Was he changing that kind of stuff? Was he changing like the flares on it? It's basically like he bought a new truck for, a couple $100 worth of paint and metal.
Yeah. His he did a few things that I don't know how they're going to go. One being he's trying to get to Rick's safe room or whatever, where he has all of his information, which is at Rick's home. And we see him at the end, out in the yard, and clearly he's at the house with the intent of getting inside and potentially getting into that room. We don't know what happens. It doesn't tell us. I guess we'll know next week. And then secondly, he's stalking Jerry. He's not. There was no scenes where he was, scoping out Grace and Danny, specifically Jerry. And we know that he appears to have feelings for Jerry, or has, it's creepy stalker, type stuff because he leaves the note on her door at the end. So I don't know where that's going either. I also don't know why. I don't know, that might be his undoing, because his obsession with her is going to bring him down. Like the smart thing to do would lay low, and he's not laying low in dealing with her specifically.
Very much the opposite of laying low. Like he's going to Rick's house to basically get rid of his name and evidence of him. Yet he is stalking one of the victims and not being very smart about it at that.
No, not at all. We get Cassie and Jenny officially team up. At the end, they're basically like, all right, we're partners. We're in this business. Cody's dead. We still get the flashback with him. I'm assuming we're going to continue to get those. I think it's funny how Jenny was the wife. She none of the flashbacks are with her and him. It's always Cassie and thinking about him. That's funny to me.
When we talked about that earlier today, like I couldn't stop laughing because I didn't even think about that. But it's so funny that, his kid lost his dad, his wife lost her husband, and the mistress is the one reminiscing about him, not the other two.
I also think it's funny, they keep building this sort of legend about how great he was as a detective. And, there's a scene where they're quoting him like, oh, he always said blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how great was he? This asshole, Rick Legalski, shot him in the face. It's like,
yeah,
he didn't see that coming.
This 60-year-old state trooper outsmarted him and shot him in the face.
Like, they're gonna need to do a better. It was just, I thought that scene was funny because my immediate thought was, okay, if we're going to build the idea that he was this great, cops, detective, whatever, you're going to need to start giving us flashbacks of that.
I don't know, man.
Him solving cases.
Remember? I said, I don't know, man. Remember, he's a wild Mustang.
Dude, that was the hands down of all the dialogue. I felt that was the cringiest. There was, there was a couple scenes that started, and I in a way that I was like, I don't like it, but they ended up going somewhere that I was like, wow, that was really really well done. That particular scene was just the most cliche, cringy thing. He's a he's a Mustang that let him run wild and blah blah blah, and I was like, whatever.
I couldn't
Um,
stop.
I I thought the rest of the funeral was decent. I thought some of the dialogue was good. I thought the singing stuff was okay. I was surprised that Danny and Grace didn't, because they've been establishing that them and Jerry been singing, as a way to cope and get through
Yeah,
being kidnapped. Why didn't they all come up and start singing?
my favorite part of the funeral was the 21 gun salute with cowboy hats and revolvers. I could not stop fucking giggling about that because not only did they, the way it happened, the way they were shooting the guns and all of that, they, if anybody held a gun how those guys held a gun, you break your damn wrist. Like even shooting blanks, like it was, and I don't know that they would even have blanks. Who's fucking handing out blanks for a 21 gun salute for a washed up Mustang? I don't know.
The yeah, that scene came off a little corny. Yeah, the
A
shooting
little.
and the and the yeah, it was one of those. I was like, do people do that? Because I don't think they do. Like you know, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those scenes that it feels like somebody wrote it. They're like, oh, this will be great. He'll get this nice sort of cowboy send off. And I'm up to this point also. I was like, they really never like highlighted that Cody was this like cowboy. Like he was a cop, I think, and a detective, and he lived out there, but I never outside of the horse scene in this one episode where she's on the horse and the flashback where he's talking about she's a cowgirl and everything. I'm like, has there been an established thing that he grew up on a farm and that he's into cattle and horseback riding and everything?
Not that I recall, but like you said, they established that they didn't establish that he like grew up on a ranch. Like like I get, in the South, everybody who lives in the South isn't, going fishing and hunting. That doesn't happen. Everybody who's from the North isn't snowmobiling and dropping f bombs. Like yes, there's stereotypes, but Montana isn't full of cowboys and well, clearly it is because at his funeral, everybody was wearing cowboy hats. Well, even crazier because he wasn't wearing one. So it wasn't like if my thing was wearing cowboy boots and I died and everybody came to my funeral wearing cowboy boots to honor me, I would get that. I mean, it's stupid, but I get it. But he wasn't like this big cowboy hat enthusiast, and everybody there was like,
Yeah, it's not like it
honor
was
him with
Walker
their
Texas Ranger funeral. You know what I mean? Like I thought, yeah, it sort of caught me off guard. I was like, I don't recall why them establishing that about him up until this point. This big like cowboy funeral. I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, they need to do a little better job. If we're going to keep doing flashbacks with him, we need to establish
a
why he
character.
was good. What? Yeah, what was he good at? Show me some crimes he solved. Show me some things he achieved. If he in fact he's going to keep popping up. Um, Clearly Cassie, has stepped up as the lead. With Jenny, and I thought this episode did a good job with that. I'd complain a lot about it in the first 5 episodes, as far as Cassie saying, who the hell is she, and let me know. But I think they did a decent job in this episode with them.
Yeah, I agree. They, we've talked about it. We were, saying that they haven't really established any storylines with them, or this to me finally felt like they were not necessarily on the same page, but working together with a common goal where they hadn't done that yet. And it's one of those things where it just took forever for it to be established. But now that they have established it, I'm less mad about the first couple episodes where they didn't. This episode I think was a couple episodes late. as far as them establishing a couple storyline things. I think that this is great, but you think of this long term wise, them establishing some things by episode 5 really isn't that far into the story. So looking back now, there's a lot less gripes I have than what I did in the first 4 episodes.
We get Merilee, Rick Legowski's wife. We get some pretty good scenes with her. Actually, her character has grown more and more as the show has gone on. And in this one, there's a great scene where she's at his hospital bedside, and she's confronted by Jenny, basically like, your husband probably killed my husband, and she's mad about it. And at first I was yet again going, it was a little cringy, and I was like, what are they doing? But then I liked the scene. Then it got really good, and I think the way she played that scene, with this basically saying, I don't, what am I supposed to say to you? And she sort of lays out her feelings on everything. I was like, okay, that worked. And I even like the scene when she gets home and the house is all smashed up, the floors are ripped up, and it's she's a victim too. And you have to, you were establishing she didn't know what Rick was. She didn't know that he was doing the things that he was doing, and this disrupts her life. This is a horrible thing for her. And like I said, she's also a victim, and I think they did a pretty good job of establishing that.
Well, and we talked about that earlier too, that you have the way the storyline was setting up, that her being like she just had no idea. And Jenny mentions that. She was like, well, how well did you know him? Clearly not well. But when you think of, a significant other that you've had or anything, just think to yourself, in any given situation, you never really know how somebody's going to react. There's always personality secrets. You can only hide your crazy for so long, but clearly he was a lot better at it than most.
Yeah, but
he had no idea. And
because I mean, we've all known people that have, were not who they said they were, or you know what I mean, or they did things you're like, wow, I can't believe that person did that. I've grown up with people, and I'm like, wow, damn, I didn't think that person would do that thing. So and you always hear stories when serial killers get caught, and people are like, "Oh, I never knew. I never knew." I believe that. I believe that it's possible to hide something like that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to, but clearly it's possible because, like you said, you look at serial killers who were just like, I never knew that Dahmer was capable of eating people, and that all these people have family and friends and everything else. So it was kind of a cool way to put in perspective that that kind of stuff does happen and people don't really know. But her response to me was the best. I mean, she's, stating, this is the only answer I have right now, because it is the only answer she has. She doesn't know really how else to explain it. How else do you explain, hey, yeah, my husband was kidnapping people and is in on this, murder plot, as well as, human trafficking. And he, not only on top of all that, he also human trafficked kids. Like, it's, I mean, we know as part of the story that the kids weren't intentional, but she doesn't know that. Like,
and he was still willing to give them away. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the only bit that she knows, and that'd be a hard thing to handle. That'd be a very hard thing to deal with.
I'm curious to where Grace and Danny's story goes forward, because they established that Jerry, she's there and she's talking about how she's going to work with Cassie and Jenny. So it's like, all right, she can maybe join the team or whatever in theory. But Grace and Danny, they're not from there. They don't live there. And Grace even goes as far as to say, yeah, we're supposed to leave tomorrow, but we'll probably stay an extra day. I want to, meet with the police again and get those sketches more accurate. So are they, and this was something I had said back in episode 5, why I didn't think they would get loose. Because I was like, well, if they get freed, how are you going to explain them staying? And so now the show is did it. They did get free, and now it's right now we've got them extended for one more day. But are they going to stay on the show? Or are they going to leave? The only thing I could think of is Danny dates Justin Hoyt, and I'm like, but they're both, I believe, they're both under, they're minors, so they're. I don't think she's graduated high school. But maybe Danny will want to stay because of her boyfriend. I don't know. What do you think? You think they're going to stay? They're going to write them off the show? How do they keep them there?
Well, and that's the boyfriend is the only thing I can think of. But I can tell you right now, as a parent, if my kid was like, you know what, I was kidnapped and I'm 17 and I'm just going to hang out here with my boyfriend instead of coming home, Dad, I'd be like, well, the fuck you are. There is absolutely no way we would stay. We would talk to the cops and we would help try to catch the person. But outside of that, we would not be hanging around in that town anymore. So that it's just so weird for them to be like, you know what, we're just going to hang out here. No, fuck that. And like I said, as a parent, I'd be like, nope, let's go. And that's the part that I didn't get because I didn't even remember seeing the parents.
They were not in the episode. They
Yeah,
appeared an episode or two back
yeah.
for like 2 seconds, and yeah,
And that's the most baffling part to me. You have your kids that are now not being human trafficked anymore, and you're not with them. Like,
my my
this,
guess my guess is this is purely a writer thing. The writers don't really know what to do, and they're trying because and this was the question I posed at the end of episode 5. I said, okay, if Rick is dead and Cassie rescues these girls, because I was speculating that the Canadian crew were going to come in and take them, because I was like, no, if they get rescued, how do you keep them in the town and keep them in the story? I couldn't think of any logical way to do it within the story, and it feels sort of like I'm right. The showrunners are trying to figure out how to do it.
yeah, and as of right now, they haven't quite done that. And but like I said, it's almost it's not like a plot hole, but it does
Not
make
yet.
it not yet, but it seems like it very well can be because, like I said, any parent who's watching this is like, yeah, this is bullshit because there is absolutely no way that you would allow your kids to not be with you after something traumatic like that, unless their parents are like, unless they just write them like that, they're just pieces of shit that don't care, which they could be. Like I don't, they haven't established well enough for them to be one way or the other, but it seems like very poorly done at this point in time. But
Speaking of,
we talked about Cassie and Jenny being poorly done, and they fixed that pretty quickly. So we could just be not privy to what they're doing just yet. So I'll hold out hope that it's not going to be stupid. But as of right now, I'm not buying it.
well, one thing that I just didn't understand, and I actually did a little research before we started recording, and I couldn't find anything on it. Um, Jimmy. So Jerry's back at, she lives in like I guess a trailer park or whatever, and somebody's stalking her, and we know they've established that Ronald is in fact stalking her. So it sort of leads the audience to believe maybe it's him. And she's running, she's panicking, and turns out it's not him. It's this guy, and he's just like, hey, and she's like, Jimmy. And he seems legitimately concerned, and trying looking out for her, and asking her questions, and she's just like, no, I'm good. And clearly something had happened between the two of them, and things aren't great, but he seems to be upset about it. Like there's a whole lot in that scene that you feel like we're getting, but we don't know any of the details. And so me and you had talked earlier, well, maybe Jimmy was maybe in one of the stories she told when she was captive, maybe she mentioned Jimmy. I did some research. I couldn't find anything regarding this character. Audience, if Jimmy was referenced at any point in the show, and I'm forgetting, or I couldn't find it, yeah, let me know in the comments below. But as of now, no, Jimmy is. We don't know who Jimmy is. Not that it's super important. I just thought it was a weird scene where clearly these two have a history and they're not letting us in on it.
Well, and we said that too. Like you could have just literally had a line of dialogue being like, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a while," because when she was talking to Ronald, I want to say it was in either the first episode or the second episode, that she had mentioned that it was no, it wasn't when she was talking to Ronald. I want to say it was when she was talking to Rick, and she was mentioning that the last time someone found out what she was, they weren't too happy, and then Rick told her to get undressed, and then he was like, "Put your clothes on." But she was mentioning that there was someone who wasn't happy last time, and it really hurt her feelings or whatever. But she could have made a reference to that, just be like, "Hey, Jimmy, it's been a long time. Last time I saw you, things didn't end well," and that would have been it. But for them to just, we're led to just assume those kind of things. Like he seems to be a pretty important character for it to just not be referenced at any point in time before.
Well, yeah, because my first gut thought was, well, is he a family member? Because we do know she did talk about her family abandoning her and all
Yeah,
that. But then I'm like, no, I think he lives there. So yeah, then I'm thinking, well, maybe were in a relationship, and then, he maybe it didn't work out, he flipped out or whatever. But there was, like you said, but then in this moment, he seems really concerned and legitimately um, trying to be helpful. I don't know. It was just a bizarre scene that had no real explanation. And then it ends with the note on the door letting us know that Ronald was, in fact, there and knows where she lives and is continuing to stalk her. So I don't know. I just thought it was a bizarre scene. And I was like, well, I guess, are we going to get more Jimmy later, maybe? I don't know.
I hope so. I mean, it would. I don't
They,
like
they,
stuff to be
they
unexplained.
cast him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's clearly there in at least an episode.
It was he acted well. The scene was well played.
Yeah, he did good.
I was like,
I believe that he was concerned, so I guess that's what they were trying to establish. They
exactly.
they established it. I was like, you know what? He seems like he's really concerned about her.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so that's about it. Let me see here. Did I miss anything important? I was gonna bring up an important scene, but I don't want to start humming it. But I do enjoy
Which
the
which
fact
which one? Which
that
part?
Sinatra "High Hopes" is the
What was
song
it go
that,
again?
huh?
How'd it go again? Like, I
Yeah.
don't remember. I haven't been singing it all day because of you or anything.
Yeah, it was funny how they're trying to figure out a way to help Rick wake up from his brain injury, and they're like, well, music is, been shown to help, and his favorite song is Frank Sinatra, "High Hopes." And I didn't think they were going to play it. I was like, well, they mention it, and then the scene ends, and I'm thinking, well, it probably costs a lot of money, to get the license, the song for the show. But I'll be damned. A couple scenes later, bam, it starts playing, and the camera's panning up, and I had a big smile on my face. I did quite enjoy it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Like, it's an older song, so I don't know when it becomes the public domain. I don't. I
I don't think
know,
it's old
like
enough yet.
books. Yeah, I know books. It's not as long, and movies. It was before Disney like tried to change everything. It was like 70 years or 60 years or something. But I don't know what
Yeah. If they could
the
have it their way,
beautiful
it'd
one
be
is.
1,000 years.
Yeah, it doesn't become public domain until
Come on.
everyone who's ever been associated with its grandkids die.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, Rick is back. That does have me intrigued, and looking forward to the next episode. It's weird. It's weird. I'm legitimately am looking forward to the next episode. I know that sounds weird. Me saying it's weird because several episodes back, I was just very not sure about this show, and it's starting to grow on me um, quite a bit. It's also helps that it's short. Each episode's like 42 minutes, give or take, and it's a really quick paced show. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's a couple other shows that we do that it seems very. I'm not as much looking forward to the next one. it's like I almost want it to just be over so I can through it.
Yeah,
But
there's one. Yes.
yes, there's one specific, but this one's not one of them. Like I actually am genuinely looking forward and seeing what happens. But I think that they do a great job. With Rick, they show Rick at the very end. Then you're like, oh shit! So each episode, which they said that each episode basically ends like on a cliffhanger type thing, and each episode has so far. So it's hooking you each episode, which is a brilliant way to bring you back each week.
Yeah, they had said that at the. You're right. Well, during the promotion of the show, that was the structure of it. Each episode would end in a way that would be like, oh shit, huge, cliffhanger moment, and it's lived up to its word so far.
Okay.
Definitely.
It said, I just looked up music, public domain music. The length of the copyright protection varies from country to country, but music, along with most other creative works, generally enter the public domain 50 to 75 years after the death of the creator. So, Jesus, he
Yeah,
didn't die
it's not.
until what, the night? So, we got another
So they paid
more
for it.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, they paid for it. Uh, but yeah, that's it. I think. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this review. We will be, as of now, we're going to be doing the entirety of season 1 of Big Sky. So tune in every week for these reviews. Lots of other content on the channel, and big plans for the next maybe in about a month from now. We got some big plans coming to the channel, so
I mean,
we'll
my
look
furniture came
forward
in
to
today.
that. Yes, yes. Um, so yeah, excited. So thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.